everything beautiful and blessing in the whole world, universe, and beyond that, women are also part of it. So today we have brought a small part of those wonderful women who are working relentlessly in making the world more inclusive, resilient, and peaceful one. So we will introduce to our honorable speakers for today. First of all, we have Ms. Sara Rahim, International Program Manager, Aqua, Global Shaper, World Economic Forum, UN Youth Representative. We have Ms. Jannatul Mawa Ainan, Fellow of King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue, KAICIID. We have Ms. Shehreen Ataur Khan, Manager, Research and Publication, GenLab, and Assistant Professor, Jagannath University, and also State Alumni. We have Ms. Anupoma Niloya Troyee. She is also Aqua Fellow and Speaker of G20 Interfaith Summit, Germany and India. And we have Neha Roy from India. She is a Commonwealth Scholar, Fellow of KAICIID again, King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue. Before we start hearing from these wonderful ladies, I would like to introduce Mr. Josh Camp from US Embassy and request him to share his views. Mr. Josh Camp.
Well, thank you very much. GenLab has been a wonderful and reliable partner for the American Center, delivering fantastic programming related to interfaith dialogue, civic engagement, and participation in the community. Today's program, I think, couldn't come at a better time. At this time, as we look around the world, in Bangladesh, in the United States, we see people working hard in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. And it reminds us that each of us must undertake work with our peers to make our communities a better place, to be more reflective of the world in which we want to live. We all should do our parts to build bridges with our neighbors, to reach out to people who think differently than we do, who look differently than we do, to pursue a common goal of universal human rights and fundamental freedoms for all people in a world where we collectively reject racism and discrimination, push back against stereotypes, and embrace and accept one another. I don't need to tell you why the work that you do is important. Women and men share a collective responsibility to improve the communities where we live. There are challenges that make that effort more difficult for women, and I hope that each of you will find a way to push your partners and to push yourselves to engage and do more of what is meaningful to you. And particularly to the men in the room, support the women in your lives. Make space, make time, do your part in all of the things that make life easier in a partnership. This weekend, the United States will celebrate its 244th birthday. The Independence Day of the United States is celebrated on July 4th each year. And it's a time when we in America remember the struggle that was the birth of the United States, a push for fundamental freedoms and rights, an exercise in democracy for independence, for self-determination, to try to create a place a country that would embrace equality and merit-based success. The United States has a long way to go. The United States struggles with racism and discrimination and mistreatment. Each day, we hope to make progress to move forward to create a world that is more equitable and fair. Wherever you are, I hope you will do the same. And finally, thank you for joining this program. Please stay home and stay safe and wash your hands. Call a doctor when you feel sick, and know that in the coming weeks and months, we will persevere, we will triumph, and we will all come together again to undertake these kinds of wonderful community activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Josh Kemp. Wonderfully said. Embrace and accept one another. আমরা আজকে পুরো সেশনটা ইংলিশে কন্ডাক্ট করব। Still, if any of our speakers wants to speak in Bengali, they can. We are trying to conduct it in English, as two of our speakers are international speakers and from different other regions. One, Sara Rahim, she is joining us from Chicago, and Ms. Neha Roy is joining us from India. So amongst our participants, if you have any questions for our panelists, please write on the chat section. We will take your questions in the last 10-15 minutes. You can also write hi, hello, and if you want to leave specific notes, comments, that is also appreciated. Without further delay, I would like to request Ms. Anupoma Niloya Troyee, Aqua Fellow, Speaker, G20 Interfaith Summit, Germany and India, Marie Curie Fellow, and also our GenLab's Innovation Manager. Troyee, how did you get involved in Interfaith, and how was the journey?
Hi, thank you, Ishratapu. So I'm really glad to be part of this dialogue, especially in this all-women panel. This is the one very first for me, and also distinctly because we are all women of color and we are working in interfaith cooperation. So sometimes I joke around when I go to different interfaith conferences. I say, although there might be few commonalities in all religion, or maybe not, but most common thing is in all of them is usual exclusion of women from their religious and spiritual leadership and dialogue. So we do not see a lot of women talking about interfaith harmony or spiritual leadership. So I'm so glad that we are doing it, and as you say in the title, that you can too. So my journey actually started, as you asked, with a very personal realization. More than anything. So when I was very young, so I saw when the part of the world that I come from, South Asia, especially Bangladesh, I have seen how our society have perceived equality and discrimination. So we all have been taught that to have a peaceful coexistence and society, we need to have equality of rights, opportunities, and all voice must be equally heard. And when I looked around at a very young age, I saw that we did not do that based on two criteria. One was our gender orientation, and the second was our beliefs. So what belief you hold or non-belief, you were judged by in every category, from getting a job, getting a promotion, even renting a room, you are judged by these two criteria. So that was the first chord that struck me. And from there, I was thinking that how our society was dawdling around the idea of equal treatment to everyone, but still grappling with so many problems that comes with this having not the same standard for all the majority, minority beliefs or gender orientation. So I was very lucky that I could work with a group, very talented and young group of young men and women in GenLab, and we came up with several ideas. And from 2016, we actually started to do I think we are the first youth group who have done mainstream interfaith harmony and pluralism-based work in Bangladesh. So we have worked with, like, we have engaged thousands of people, and that's how my aspiration has come from. And I have always been I have always been like really dawdled and like really surprised with that idea that how we do not perceive equality based on faith, and that is not good for a world, because we know we do not want an homogeneous society. We rather want a heterogeneous society where we all can respect each other's beliefs, we can give freedom of expression. So also another thing that comes with this interfaith harmony is the political and economical balance, and also freedom of expression and power of, and the law of land. But yeah, so I saw my country, from our ancestor, like we all are women of color, and we know that our society, our country do not still recognize these problems. So that was the first thing, that we should start recognizing the problem. We subtly ignore this intolerance, we do not encourage pluralism, and that's how my journey started. Yeah.
Thank you, Niloya. It's actually first time for GenLab too that we have all women panelists as well as moderator, and I just checked, most of our participants are women too. So this is one session to recall for years. Now I would like to request Ms. Sara Rahim. She is joining us from Chicago, USA. International Program Manager of Aqua UK, Global Shaper, World Economic Forum, and UN Youth Representative. Ms. Sara Rahim, UN Secretary General once stated in one of his speeches that we are progressing in poverty alleviation as well as gender equality, but the world is seeing rise in xenophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hatred. And as you are working with different international organizations, what is the actual scenario in the field, and how can the youth get involved?
Hi, yeah, happy to speak in. Forgive me, I'm just using audio. It's very early in Chicago, so I will just be sticking to audio. I'm happy to be joining you all, and I'm very excited that we're having this dialogue. When I got the invitation, I was very excited. I have a lot of Aqua fellow friends on this call as well, so I'm always energized to hear about the work that international organizations around the world are doing, especially engaging young people. So I think you have a very interesting question, right? So it's acknowledging that in conversations around the world, we talk about the importance of young people and women being involved at the forefront, right? It's written in our SDGs, it's often pushed and promoted. However, the reality of the nonprofit scene is often very grim. I think for myself as a young Muslim woman of color, I've often struggled being that only voice at tables where I think representation is needed. It's very challenging because I think the need for women to help push the agenda has been on the forefront since probably for the past 10, 20, 30 years. And it's only now gained more interest and traction because, funders are looking for women representation. So I think for me, the biggest gap is moving from tokenizing or token representation to actually integrating not just youth leadership into the nonprofit space or the policy world, but also like training women to be empowered enough to take leadership positions and to be successful. So that's something that I've noticed, and so I'm a big fan and promoter of female mentorship programs, investing in young leadership early on, and helping train us to build the capacity to run programs. So one approach that I've taken specifically with Aqua, which is a common word among the youth in the past 2 to 3 years, is really focusing on some of that tangible skill building. That includes hot topic issues like fundraising and budgeting, and how do you effectively create a monitoring and evaluation plan, right? Some of these I think we need to marry the soft skill dialogue with the hard skills and action. And what I love about Aqua itself is that it's so action oriented. You know, it's moving beyond talk and dialogue, which is again so important, but really focusing on what action and change are we implementing in our communities. So I think there's still a lot of work to do in the nonprofit space, but I'm excited to see more focus on really training young people to be ready to be leaders in the future, and frankly move beyond token representation and really just lead the way, I guess. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sara Rahim. Rightly said, you mentioned integration, training, and more investment on women leadership programs. That's wonderful. In the introduction of today's session, I mentioned that I will be talking more about GenLab's other activities too. So GenLab is working in different other projects, and one of our major projects continuing is Climate Launchpad 2020. It's the world's largest green business and clean tech idea and incubation competition. And we are proud to announce that we are not only the co-country lead in Bangladesh, but also taken over Bhutan and Myanmar too. And we will be looking forward for your presence and your support too from our panelists and participants. For further details, you can check our page GenLab and also climatelaunchpad.org. Now I would like Ms. Jannatul Mawa Ainan, Fellow of KAICIID. And Ms. Ainan, you have a profound academic studies on interfaith at KAICIID. So in one hand, we have religious beliefs and sentiments. And on the other hand, we have feminism. And there's always a man-made conflict between these two. So how do you define this conflict and how to solve it?
So glad to be here, and I'm along with my introduction as a KAICIID fellow. I'm also a student of religious studies, a researcher of religious studies, and that has a lot to do with my work in interfaith dialogue. I started working in this platform because it was my personal. Like I have some personal issues also. Like I need to write about my views. I need an environment which would be welcoming for any kind of view. So I started working in this field so that I can create. I can at least try to create a common platform for all kind of views. And today I know a lot of our participants are very new they have very few, I think they are not that much familiar with the term interfaith dialogue. So I'd like to start with the idea that first of all, we have to know that what is not interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue is not preaching. It doesn't preach any new religion. It doesn't proselytize. It doesn't syncretize. Like it doesn't syncretize among religions. It's just try to create a common platform of various faith, of people from various faith traditions, and try to create an environment of acceptance and to acceptance the others. So here, with the term others, I saw because somehow we live in a man's world, and so women are always like others, mainly in the religious premises. Later, if I get chance, I will try to show video how women are have been seen as others in the religious premises. But that's the fact that women are seen as others in the religious premises, and in that from that perspective, feminists, people who hold the feminist views, and also the women who think that they need more voice in the field of religion. I feel that they also have a lot to do in this platform. And my long-term dream is to bring feminists and various religious leaders like imams, clergy, rabbis in an interfaith dialogue platform, because I feel that they need to talk to each other. And feminism has a lot to do with this, because recently I saw a movie called Bulbul, and I found the keywords in that movie were shame, house, husband, and control, and keep silent. These I found these were the keywords of the movie, and the movie where in the movie they are telling a story of the time period of 1880s. They were telling a story of Hindu Jamindar family, but these words are so familiar to all of us. In every culture, unfortunately, it's still relevant. These words: control, house, veil. They also used the word veil. So it's not only specific religion has nothing to do with the idea of feminism. It's about, we are talking about our traditions. It's not about we are talking about any specific religion. And feminists also need to come forward in this field, because I saw another tendency about interfaith dialogue, and there is a stereotype, as Josh was saying, that we need to break stereotypes. But interfaith dialogue activists themselves face a lot of stereotypical attitude from the others who doesn't know much about interfaith dialogue. Among them, the people have two extreme views. Like a lot of people nowadays, we are trying to find out the post-colonialist thoughts everywhere. So a lot of people try to portray interfaith dialogue activities as a part of colonialist agenda. And it's very it hurts me as personally as an interfaith dialogue activist, that how different actually we are. Basically, interfaith dialogue activists try to hear, or to try to hear the unheard voices. That's totally anti-colonial, post-colonialist attitude, and we are termed as a colonialist agent, as some agent of colonialist, and something like very bad. And another extreme end people who doesn't like much to talk about religion, they say that interfaith dialogue activists are actually trying to live in some utopian world where religion is just talk about peace, and they try to avoid the idea of the conflicting part of religion. That's another wrong view about interfaith dialogue activists. Interfaith dialogue activists never deny that there are people who use religion to promote conflict. That's the reason interfaith dialogue activists want to promote peace through religion, interreligious dialogue. I think I have answered, and I think I will talk more. Let's.
Ishatapu, you are mute.
Am I audible? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ainan. And you said it right. Religious leaders have to come forward for this noble cause too. And from this conversation, I just recalled it was back in 2010, and U.S. Embassy had an outreach program, students outreach program, and I was a part of it. And then I was only a third semester student, and I went there. I was selected from a university, Dhaka University. And one of the projects we visited was Leaders of Influence, LOI project. I don't know whether it's still running or not. If Josh is there, he can speak about it later on. So then I was mesmerized. Yes, imams and the pandits and purohits, they can actually play a big role, and we all always have a negativity towards them sometimes, because we from the words and some dialogues in offline and online, we see that some of the speeches creates conflict and confusion, which are actually not at all part of religion, but those are completely anti-women. And as Ainan Apu was saying, one of the scene in Bulbul was the jewelry on the feet. That is a tradition to control women. Very well said, Ms. Ainan. Now I'd like to call upon Ms. Shehreen Ataur Khan, Manager Research Publication GenLab and Assistant Professor Jagannath University, and also US State Alumni. Ms. Khan and I can relate with Ms. Khan because we both are faculties, and it's very interesting to work with students from such a diverse background. But at the same time, it might become difficult too. Ms. Shehreen, how do you cope with that, and how do you teach interfaith amongst your students?
Thanks, Ishrat. First of all, it's an honor to share this platform with this wonderful women, and sharing our ideas on a topic which is so relevant to these days. Especially, there are two things. So when we were planning this, and when U.S. Embassy agreed to this proposal, and we as Ishrat and Niloya, both of you are here, you can seriously recall that what we were going through, because there are two elements here, that women and interfaith dialogue, and the cooperation in between these two elements are very, very important. And while I was listening to our previous speakers, there is a connection to each and everyone. It's like we are reliving almost the same segments of our life that are very much disconnected from each other, but then again, there is a single thread that connects us all together. So you were talking about my experience with my students, and this is indeed a very different experience, or a new experience every time. Since it's been 6 years since I'm working with my students as a faculty, and but my interfaith journey, since it started like in 2012, because I went to a program sponsored by Dhaka University Culture and Peace Department, and we went to Nepal, and it was built on, and the theme was based on interfaith dialogue. So from that time onwards, it went into my life, and it becomes a part of my life. And when I went to my profession, all those learnings that we had and the dialogues that we had in Nepal about interfaith and interreligious and intercultural conversation, it stayed with me. And it's really interesting that how students respond to all this issues and all these elements, because as a public university faculty, as those of you who are from Bangladesh here knows, that public university is a place where we get a lot of diversified people. There are people coming from very rural part of Bangladesh. There are people coming from very, like, if we can say, the uppermost class of Bangladesh. So all of those people are coming together in a platform, and they're sharing the platform. And when you strike the conversation or the dialogue of interfaith or interreligious, a lot of different opinion and different experience comes in. So the one thing I would like to mention here about my students, or whenever I work with students regarding interfaith dialogues or conversation, there are a lot of misconceptions. As Ainan Apu was saying, because our society is full of patriarchal and religious conformist, I'm using conformist here, religious conformist tools to regulate our social life and our society. And a lot of our students do not have that exposure with the other tools rather than non-conformist, like which are liberal or which are more diversified. So whenever you strike a conversation with interfaith and interreligious dialogue with them, the first one or the first reaction that I got usually was a shock. And for me, when it was the first time, the first experience when I realized that it's so surprising for me, because as we are standing here in this platform, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree that most of us are coming from a very privileged background right here, right now in this platform. So I was having this privilege of being raised in a liberal family or having around people who also share the same mindset. But a lot of us do not have that privilege. So whenever we strike those sort of dialogue system, so different sort of elements come in. And one of the elements is that people think that our previous speaker, Sara, was talking about it, that interfaith does not mean preaching. It really does not mean preaching. This is something that the faiths are complementing each other and moving towards a path which is helpful, or which is again complementing with each other and having a conversation that is constructive, not destructive. And this construction again is coming back to the society, and this construction is again coming back to the education system. And so this was my first type of experience. Another type of experience that I often face is that students are very enthusiastic about all this topic. They want to know more. They want to participate more. And in this case, I think this sort of programs can be a really good thing for them, for us, and everyone, to make it more participatory. And I think someone here, probably, I was reading the group chat, someone here probably wrote that, because American Center is far away and she could not attend, but this sort of online platform, like because of the COVID that we are here on online, it reaches a lot of people. It has the ability to reach a lot of people. So I think that this sort of initiative would help our society, our students, faculties, and everyone, our politicians, to go beyond the limitations and the tools that are using to promote conformist values, rather to get like more liberal or constructive values altogether. So yes.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. She pointed two words which is very significant, that is constructive conversation, and that is why we are here. And I've been reading those comments too. I will be coming towards the questions. I would request our participants to place your questions. If you want to ask any specific speakers, then you can write down their name and your questions. If you have a general question, please write it down. We are expecting a lot of questions from you, and we will take each and every question. And last but not the least, Ms. Neha Roy from India. She is Commonwealth Scholar, Fellow of King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue, KAICIID. Ms. Roy, you are a Commonwealth Scholar, had opportunities to intermingle with a lot of educated peers, as well as you have experiences in grassroots levels too. And I just want to know that what is the basic difference between these two classes?
Hello, can you hear me now? My internet is really not that good.
No
Anyway,
problem, we
thank
can
you.
hear you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. In case if I switch off the video during my talk, please don't mind. It's just
No
because the
problem.
internet connection is poor here. Thank you for your question. Thank you everybody for your insights and inputs. And it's really nice to be in a panel, all women panel, where we don't have to worry if we are just sprinkled in for the sake of it. Because that's what people do nowadays, like in terms of diversity, and just to bring in some color and just to bring in women, we just have you on the panel, so you feel secure that it's an all women's panel, and you're there because you're worth it. Hello, I don't know if I'm okay, you can hear me. Great. So regarding I have started to believe that we should stop calling people educated on the basis of the degrees or the elite class they mix with, because it's really become very subjective, like speaking in terms of interfaith discourses, let's say in India, in extremely rural places, they know how to manage interfaith ties very, very efficiently. For instance, you do not teach them interfaith as in something different as a subject, as they're not scholars of anthropology like myself or religious studies like Jannatul, but then they do not see it as unnatural to be like it's a part of their lives. They know that this stream divides, let's say community X lives on one side, community X Y lives on the other, and they know the kind of sharing of resources, how people live together in the means, like they know that this water has to be shared between communities. It's a very simple notion of interfaith ties, extremely practical, but then it's not taught to them. So I really don't feel comfortable in this dichotomy of educated and less educated kind of interaction. In terms of Commonwealth, when I was a Commonwealth scholar, and I did grassroots level work even while I was on that scholarship. So I really don't, like if you expected an answer saying that while I was a scholar, it was a different discourse, and while I worked at grassroots, it was different. I don't see the difference quite distinctly. For me, it's very diffused, right? And also because you must be wondering, why am I picking out on words? A part of my interest is also how in let's say gender studies and religious studies and anthropology, people frame sentences and how you make meanings of it, right? We're all here because we believe in the cause of women in interfaith dialogue, but people who might read even this dialogue sessions caption, like if women can, you too, like if women could, you too can, it's kind of derogatory in a way, right? Because you won't say the similar things for men. Would you say if man can, you too can? No, you will say if women can, you too can, so what I'm trying to say here is how we place words is really important, and not necessarily how you understand the dichotomy someone else would too. Okay, that's from me.
Thank you, Ms. Neha Roy. And we had Ms. Saida Shagufe Hossain, founder of Leaping Boundaries, who couldn't attend today's session, but hopefully we will be trying to bring her in our further other sessions. And right now we have a lot of questions, but we will take it after the second part of our session. That is, I'm gonna ask you a very common question to all of our speakers, and one by one you can answer. The question is, the second part of our title was "You Can Too." Ms. Neha Roy just spoke a little about it. I would like to know details from you, that we have our participants, and whenever I posted somewhere, my LinkedIn and my Facebook and in my Instagram that we're gonna have this session, then majority of the comments were, how can I be a part of it? Specifically, there were some comments like talking about interfaith sometimes brings wrath of some religious groups and some anti-feminist people, and netizens. So most of the women especially fear of their lives and their livelihood and everything by writing one comment regarding interfaith. So in this scenario, in Bangladesh, in the subcontinent, or all over the world, how can women get involved in You Can Do It Too? I would like to start with Anupoma, Niloya, Troyee.
Okay. Interesting question. So when I saw the name, also like we discussed, I was also like, why women can do? Like, why not men can too? We never say, okay, it's men too. Like, it's always we are others, as Ainan Apu said. So it's always women are others. And if men can do something, we can do it too. But we are not the one that do it first. So the thing is, like, when we talk about interfaith dialogues and cooperation, as I told before, that all around the world, I have seen many women talking about it, and they say that they were being disciplined for questioning or dismantling the religious institutions. So being a woman, you are always like 10 steps behind to ask any question or to lead this interfaith dialogue because, oh, you are a woman. So, I mean, we haven't still come to that place where we are like equal, and then we can divide our path. Okay, we support interfaith or we don't. We're still behind as women. So maybe that too will be removed when we'll be like equal, and then we can do too, and we will do and we will do. So the thing is, that the thing that you asked, like, now we are on agreement to break these glass ceilings that women, being a woman, leading an interfaith dialogue, or like involving yourself in interfaith activities are not so easy. In our part of the world, we are still struggling to establish right and wrong, like the other part of the world that has already established. When you, like, for example, if you see social media posts, if anything, like, first derogatory comments were always made because you are a woman, because you come from a minority religious background or a minority ethnic group. Okay, that person is that, so that's why this is going to happen to that person. So our main struggle and our main motive is to first, like, educate, not like give degree, educate, make people aware about this is a problem, and the way that Sneha could see that you can too is a problem. We all should have seen by now that it is a problem, but we never saw it, right? Like, we never saw it. So this is the time that we start talking, we come to the same place as men are in this field, and then we can we can do this interfaith harmony cooperation, because women are never heard about this topic, and like 83% of the global population are still like living in this restrictive religious freedom, like they have restrictive religious freedom. And in our country, what we say, we are a non-communal country, but everywhere we are seeing the same problem. So yeah, so that's, I think we have to first talk about it, and then we have to find that problem and recognize it and then work for it. So that's what my answer would be.
Thank you, Niloya. Ms. Sara Rahim, the same question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so okay, the question is, how can I also get involved? You can too. So first, I want to acknowledge my own privilege in this conversation. I'm a first generation Pakistani American, born and raised in the US, and I think in a country where religious diversity naturally exists, it's easy to do that work, and a lesson that I learned early on in my career is that context matters in the interfaith world, So for myself in my journey, I remember just growing up, and I was the only Muslim kid in my class, and I always knew I was different, but I didn't know what to do with that. And like many Muslim Americans who grew up in the US after 9/11, I think we quickly realized that if we didn't learn how to talk about our religion in a positive way, then someone else was going to do that for me. So very quickly I realized I needed to be a positive advocate for the Muslim faith, be very involved. And I fell into Interfaith. For me, it was this way to find that common value across religions and to take action. And for me, that started locally. That started at the masjid, learning about my own religion, making friendships, and then doing service projects with other religions. But I just want to highlight, I recognize that context matters, and in my early 20s, I ended up in France and I was talking about interfaith work, and I had a woman just raise her hand and say, it's very easy for you in the US and Canada to do these projects, but in a country like France, where religion is very taboo, we can't have the same project, And I had a friend who, he was Hindu in India, and he also told me, he's like, I can bring people together to do service. We can create projects on hygiene and alleviating poverty, but he's like, we can't talk about religion. That is taboo. So I want to acknowledge that what's really important is context matters, and that you can start local, So even in Bangladesh, it doesn't have to be a radical change. It can be local. It can be something as getting a few friends together and maybe having a conversation over a piece of literature, And similar to what Anupoma said, I think we have a lot of work to do as women. With our first step is just fighting for equality right now, And it's frustrating that so much of the pressure comes on us as women, right? We need allies and men to do the same work. So the advice that I would say is, don't feel like you have to put all the weight of this movement on your shoulders. You can start small, you can start local. It can be a conversation with a friend, an organization, and you can go from there. Because I realize, interfaith is going to look different in different places. And just that I'm happy to be a resource and ally. I have a lot of tools and trainings that we've created in North America that, again, I acknowledge need to be contextualized, but I'm happy to be a thought partner or someone to dialogue with if you're interested. I can share my email at the end of this as well. So yes, I would say start local, start small, and build your way up.
Thank you so much. Start small, start local. Miss Jannatul.
To take with the tune from Sara, that start local, start from small. I would like to say start from yourself, start personally. We have to recognize ourselves that we are also important. We are usually we forget about that fact. I'd like to share my experience with this. Last year in 2018 we arranged an interfaith dialogue project for women. So in that project there were women from various fields came. We also invited women who are housewives, we call them, and one of them personally called me and was almost crying that she did not know that she is also important for this society, and she could not recognize her own space in this society. But with that, she said that with that program, she could find her space. Her husband was already working in this not exactly in interfaith dialogue, but her husband was working with the children rights and all, but she never felt affiliated with that. And in the next month, I was very happy seeing her that she is joining her husband and going outside with those children of her husband, which her husband at first established, and now she is also working in that organization, because she could do it first, but she did not feel that she is also important. So our work would be here to make women feel that you are also important, and every woman should have nurtured this personal strength too, and they have to nurture that they are also important. And I would also like to personally answer Tania Islam's, one of our participants' question. She also asked the same, that how women can get involved. And I would like to say Tania Islam herself is working a lot. She was also a participant of our back project, and I saw her. She's working every day. Maybe everything is not included interfaith dialogue or like this, but she is doing. She is doing, and we all are doing like this. If we have to do, we have to be active, to be vocal, to let people know that we have to tell something. So we have to start from ourselves, start from small to like to a broader perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Start personal from Jannatul. And we have now Miss Shehreen.
So probably I will just be reiterating what Ainan, Apu, and Sara just said, and the matter to recognize ourselves and to realize that our own initiatives matters a lot, no matter how much small it is. All initiatives matters. Therefore, for example, I was talking about my own personal experience. I'm a faculty, I teach English literature in the classroom, but then again, from my position, I can interact to, like, every day, we interact like on more than 100 students every day. So from all those 100 students, if they feel, or the female students, if they feel that they recognize their potential, they recognize their own position in the society, they can do it. Like, it doesn't have to be arranging something really big and international. They can do it with they can strike the conversation or the dialogue with their siblings, with their mother, with their father, or with their friends, or with, their local community, because all of us we are staying or living in a community. So if that happens, where every one of us is taking responsibility to strike or the dialogue or the conversation, I think that would be something that we can really rely on to. And in that way, it will also be recognizing own self as well. Because unless you are, or we are recognizing ourselves as a particular human being and has a certain kind of responsibility, it would be really difficult for any of other people to get into our psyche and make us believe something else. So I think that is more important. Like, start locally, start small, recognize yourself, and do whatever you can. Even a 5-minute conversation is more than enough if it is meaningful. So yes, recognize that.
Thank you, Ms. Shehreen. Last week we had one session with the US Embassy, and that was on voluntarism and keeping social distance. And there, all of the speakers, including me, spoke about one thing: your every effort counts. And in this session too, we are finding that notion. And now, Ms. Neha Roy.
Thank you for this question. It's really difficult to go last sometimes because people have already covered all the nice points. But however, I will try to bring in some my own nuances. First of all, while people said go local and also personal, start personally, I would like to just add a tiny bit is self-educate. Information really is free of cost nowadays, right? Everyone has access to internet, and sometimes we think, well, we need to teach. Well, I think we need to learn and unlearn first, right? Even as scholars, I'm doing a PhD in interfaith studies, but believe me, sometimes I forget my own stereotypes, my own judgments, and I have to circle back to those first. That, okay, why am I thinking this way? And then I go back and address those issues. So I think we have to first, before we think we can help others, we should try and help ourselves. And by this, I mean that try and educate yourself. And this yourself is me included. We should learn continuously because, that's what knowledge is about. So yeah, self-educate. Second point I'd like to say is when we're talking about, hey, we want to help the local community and the global community, well, let's help the family first. How many of you all are in the WhatsApp groups of families where you're always talking about things which are so irrelevant, always spreading fake news and stereotyping the other, right? There are so many family groups you're talking about the other. And because it's family, it's like uncle, mom, dad, and I don't know, those angry aunts where we cannot even say that, auntie, what you're saying is not true. I have a friend from that community and that person is amazing. You don't know people from that community. So you need to stop, spreading these fake news. So when people ask, what should I do to help? These are the basic things we can start with, and sometimes these things are so obvious that we tend to ignore it completely. And it's, by the way, more difficult, right? For me, interfaith work in the UK has been easier than interfaith work in India. When I'm born in a Hindu family, I think of myself as an agnostic, but when I speak to the Hindu community in India, they'll say, well, you belong to the majority. What do you have to do with interfaith? When I speak to the minority communities in India, they'll say, well, you come from the majority. You will not understand the problem of minorities. So I have really identity issues when I work in my own country. Working abroad has been kind of relief because you work as an outsider. So I think when I say, address things in your WhatsApp, in your own head, it's more difficult. And that has to come with practice. Someone on the group chat has messaged, I think it's Sarah Oliver, and she said something very important, like how a woman, the moment you hear the word secretary, you almost know it's a woman, right? And even in something as big as, interfaith dialogue, and, I've been very fortunate to be a part of, these forums where I've seen Jannatul, Anupoma and Sara, where you almost assume that men will have certain roles, and even women, from the interfaith community would assume to relegate roles to women. Like, you can take the report, you can write down those, you can take notes, but then someone going up on stage has to be a man, right? Because that is what people listen to and think that's coming from a place of authority, right? These are something very, very basic, but then the fact that we've normalized it to such great extents, I think it needs addressing. I give an example addressing Sarah's question, and something that I think Ishrat goes back to, what you were talking about, the educated class and grassroots and so on. So in London, there's an interfaith organization that works with the UK government. So it's one of those faith organization, has representations from the biggest archbishops to, the biggest rabbis in the country, and everyone's a trustee in that forum. I was living with one of the religious leaders for some time, and he is one of the chairpersons of that community, that organization. And his wife, I saw that was, always working hard in making the banners and organizing events, etc., etc. And one day she sat with me and said that, hey, what is interfaith work? And I was like, well, your husband is the chairperson of this, interfaith organization. And, you're always helping him with banners and, posters and arrangements and everything. How do you not know this? She said, I just do what I'm told to, and I have never asked him, and he never explained it to me. And this man, when he goes to those, big forums and has the mic in his hand, is always talking big, right? That I want to make this change and interfaith matters and this and that. I'm like, I really fell back on my seat saying that person's woman, that person's wife has no idea what interfaith work is, why is it important, and so on. So I must admit that when we say interfaith dialogue should be inclusive and interfaith community is very inclusive, I must warn you, because interfaith dialogue in itself, interfaith community in itself is a bubble, right? I meet similar faces wherever I go, and in a way we have created an echo chamber for ourselves, right? So I think, time and again, going back to what all of us have said, that we should start from something very small, something that we've normalized. Doesn't have to be world peace in 20 days, but what it can be like, okay, in 20 days, I may confront my uncle who's been spreading this, information, ill information on WhatsApp about a community. I can sit him down and talk to him about what can be done, right? So yeah, that's going to, I think I spoke a lot, but then I think those were important anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neha. First of all, you say self-educate, and the second point you mentioned, there's a Bangla proverb, maybe except Sara, everyone will understand, that is, Je pakhi ore she bashate ore. So we can clearly get the message, and thank you so much for answering question from both the first part and second part all together in this segment. Thank you so much, and we will be taking some questions now, and I can see some very interesting questions. I will start from the beginning. First of all, the question is, we see women are feminists. They fight, protest for women's rights, but why do we see the same women criticize, judge other women on the choice of makeup, dressing, or make comments about their choice of outfits? Raise eyebrows if they expose when it's the same rights of freedom they are fighting for. Can you please answer my query? Thanks. Very interesting question. I can completely relate with that, but I will give the floor to our speakers. Anyone wants to answer this question? Women judging women, though they are talking about their own rights. What about Shehreen?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that, can I volunteer? And then you said my name. So this question is really interesting, and it can go on for another 2 or 3 hours. Probably all of us can relate to it. The thing is here, women judging women is not as uncommon to men judging men, but there is a catch. The twist here is, the media always portray women as their, women against women, but never this media portray or represents male issues. That's my one point. That's number one. Number two is, if I have to say it, I have to talk about patriarchy, which is always there. So patriarchy works in a very weird way. Women can also be great tool for patriarchy, and unless we women, and when we say we women, I mean each of us, if we do not acknowledge or recognize that we are being the tool of patriarchy, I think this will go on. And my first point, if I go back to my first point, that it's not only women against women, men also beat about men. Men also have their own issues. But the reason why we do not see it, or the reason why we do not enjoy it, why it's not a kind of an entertainment in our societal life, it's because of patriarchy again, because that's not sensational, that's not something that we can take enjoyment of. And about outfits and or makeup or getting groomed up or everything, I think it's very personal choice. Men can do it, women can do it, and if we all acknowledge that we need to be respectful to each other, I think we won't be doing that. But the thing is, I think I can only say this for Bangladesh and a bit of South Asia, because as an Erasmus scholar, when I spent my 2 years in Europe, I have seen it less and less, and then what made me realize that it might be something that we sort of nurture. And when we say we I meant people of South Asia and Southeast Asia, that we love judgment. We love being judgmental, and we love judging other. Whereas when I first went to the United States in 2011, and as an exchange student, I face it, or I have seen it less and less. And I was really young at that age. And when I went to my master's journey with Erasmus, and I saw it, I realized the same. It's something that probably that we sort of nurture and inherit from a very, very young age. And it's sort of ingrained in our blood or something like that, probably, because we love judging people. We love judging others rather than ourselves. So yeah, that's my take on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shehreen. When we started our sessions with US Embassy back in 2019, we had one session that is hate speech versus freedom of speech. In that session, we had these conversations and on what is being judgmental and how these judgment are hurting other people based on caste, race, skin color, and everything. If we can have the opportunity, we would like to hold that session again in the future. Let's get back to the questions again. Ms. Surya Yasmin, thank you so much. This is why we conduct these kind of sessions. Thank you, Ms. Sara Rahim, for your answers on what is interfaith. And the other question is Ms. Tanya Islam privately messaged me. Her question was not answered, and that is, how can female interfaith initiatives actively work towards a culture of peace by advocating for gender equality? Anyone from the panelists want to answer that? Ms. Sara Rahim?
Hi, yeah, could you repeat the question?
Yes, sure. The question is, how can female interfaith initiatives actively work towards a culture of peace by advocating for gender equality?
Yeah, great question. So I hear, yeah, culture of peace and advocating for gender equality. I honestly would say a lot of it is similar to what we said here. Some of the movements and organizations that I have found to be most effective are the ones that are most connected to the grassroots players and organizers on the ground. So, you know, again, it doesn't need to be a radical shift in mentality. A lot of the change starts locally. So I would say the first step is pay attention to your own network and ecosystem. Like who are the key players and leaders and allies that you want to build? Is it your imams? Is it your local houses of worship? Are there local NGOs and nonprofits in the area that are already doing that work? Is there a voluntary sector that's heavily involved? So I'd say my first step is pay attention to who is already doing the work, because you don't have to make this lift on your own. And the second is probably build strong partnerships. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to do this work on your own. So I think finding strong partnerships with people who are already invested in communities and who have a sphere of influence, that is some of the best way to create a culture shift, because you're working with people who are like-minded. And then the third piece is pay attention to who is missing from the conversation. You know, Sneha made a very good point that sometimes the interfaith world can be an echo chamber. You know, we are all the same people who agree on the same values. So I don't think it's anyone on this call that I need to convince that gender equity matters, right? We need to be convincing the people who are not on this call. So I think we need to be critical and ask questions around why are they missing from the conversation, and invite them in non-direct ways, right? It can be a simple community action project. It can be a shared meal. It can be a dialogue. So I think as activists, we have to be a bit sneaky in how we sneak in gender equity and build a culture of peace and tolerance, right? Sometimes we have to find those safe, approachable topics and in that own way, build our ecosystem and networks. So I think we kind of, in many ways, have to be subtle. We have to be ninjas. We have to bring this in. We have to find partners who are already doing the work. And I think for me, that's how a culture shifts. But to answer your question, it is quite hard, and we can't do this work alone. And I think acknowledging that, yeah, step by step, that is the best way to shift a culture, because it's not going to happen overnight. So remembering that you are in this journey, and every conversation counts, whether it's in your WhatsApp group, whether it's having a dialogue with someone who believes differently than you. Remembering those things count too.
Thank you.
Apu, if
next,
you can weigh in a little bit
sure.
on that. So,
Yeah.
because when I hear all those like talented and beautiful women, and they know it like a lot than me, because I'm kind of here out of passion. I'm like a science nomad. I've been living in Europe and doing science research for like 5 years now. But why I'm in this field is out of my passion, and I see the problem. So to answer like Tania Islam, so we built so little, like we had only 20 people in 2015, and we started to talk about this topic in our community in Bangladesh, and now we have engaged more than thousands of people. We have gone to Chittagong with ethnic minority group, with madrasa student, whoever we thought need to be understanding this this thing that we are doing, this harmony and tolerance and peaceful coexistence. So I came up with this idea, but I am not like, but I have taken help from the experts, because I am not the expert on this field. So it's all about, like, you are from Bangladesh, so it's all about collaborating. So if you want to get involved in like every year we do multiple these programs, and we take ideas and we take suggestions from people who thinks there is a problem in somewhere, and maybe something that we could do, or we can talk, or we can address the problem. So we have done like a lot of engagement with youths, and also with imams, with religious leaders, and we have tried to bring them all in the same table, and then they could ask questions. And I think this practice that we are kind of doing needs to be spread out more and more. But yeah, that's like a start. Like, that's my example that you can take. Like, I'm like no one, and I don't know anything. I never studied other than anything like science, but I am passionate about it, and I am trying to work with the group of people who know about it, and that's how I'm being connected, and the funders are working also with us. So it's possible, and just you have to find people like us, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you, Niloya. Spread love. That is what she actually said. And we have
Ishrat, can I weigh in a bit, please?
Yeah, sure, please.
Thank you, Niloya. There's nothing better than coming up with your, personal journey, because I think the best way you can inspire someone is just talk about your own journey, right? I just have to. This question is from Tanya, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a very relevant question, and thank you so much for placing this here. I give another example because faith leaders are very important in terms of interfaith dialogue, and sometimes we associate men almost synonymously with faith leaders, right? You don't consider women faith leaders in the first place. My PhD work is in Myanmar, and I'm trying to understand how Buddhist nuns are facilitating dialogue, and what are their problems, their challenges, and how do they understand or practice dialogue. So it was very interesting for me, because Myanmar is a heavily gendered society. Like, for everything, they understand it's supposed to be a man's world. And it's not just the social construct. They have folklores which say that man is born with greater strength. It's a superior race than women. So it's that embedded. So women naturally growing up, they understand that men are superior to them. So I asked these nuns, how do they operate, in the field of dialogue? And they said something very interesting. They said, we wanted to work with the monks, but they were not as willing. So we started our own intra-nun kind of a community. It's a self-sustaining support system, right? So what they do is from different parts of Myanmar, they sometimes, work in Rakhine, sometimes in Yangon, in different cities, they keep moving and they bring in nuns who are interested, right? It doesn't have to be something big, but if I know, let's say, if I am good at calligraphy and someone else is good at cooking, someone else teaches the entire group cooking and I teach the entire group calligraphy. So in a way, you're transmitting skills, right? Similarly, they work on dialogue. Some people are good at listening. They have practiced how effective listening works. They're teaching the rest. Somebody else is good at conducting or arranging programs. So they take care of that, and they also teach others. So I think when we talk about women and gender in interfaith discourse, something that we do not focus much is the importance of building these kind of support systems. We amongst us, we don't need an outsider. And like Amma said, that there sometimes could be very few people to start off with. You wouldn't imagine there are thousands of people waiting for you to join this movement, but you can start really small. 5 people in a room can just start talking about things that matter to you, right? And then eventually maybe the 6th person joins in, and so on and so forth. It's a rippling effect, right? So this is one just example which I think was very inspiring. And I wanted to share it with the group, especially with Tanya, and I hope this is of help, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. Start small.
Ishrat, sorry.
There's
someone
please.
called Ilyas Khan who's addressed 2 comments which I would like to
Sure.
reply to, right?
Okay.
Thank you, Ilyas. Very interesting question and concerns. And it's right that I mentioned about how internet is, accessible, and how people tend to, actually people should be utilizing this source of information. But of course, we have to consider people who do not have access to internet, right? And you rightly said there's a big chunk, especially in developing countries, where women do not have access to internet and hence information. But I do not see the need many a times that they need information. We need information more because we are living in this, world where fake news is very accessible. For them, it's not. I'll give an example because COVID is very, very topical at this point. Indian government was extremely concerned about rural India, right? And they thought urban India would anyway manage because, we are the education oriented elites, right? We have access to good hospitals, progressive, information technology, and so on. But turns out the rural India managed COVID better, a lot better than urban India, right? The biggest slum in Asia, the Dharavi slum in Mumbai, was a big concern for not just India, but entire South Asia. That what if, this becomes the COVID hotspot? But you'll be surprised that Dharavi has now become a model, right? And we sometimes underestimate people and we overestimate, how people with access to education and resources may falter, right? So I think we should begin with ourselves because the problem really lies in us and not so much in the rural and the people who we think need help, really. It's a post-colonial time. We should stop assuming that people with less access need our information, need our help, and we should go rescue them. It is we who need help, and I think we should be helping ourselves first. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have a few minutes left to end this session. We will be taking some comments and questions. Ms. Sohini Jana, you have comments and you also shared your organization's website. Definitely our panelists and women like you are the frontliners in bringing peace and harmony. And we have Sadia Tahera. She shared an experience. I would like to read it for you, and this is for Jannatul Apu actually. Hi, good afternoon everyone. This is Saida Tahera. I work as an HR and admin manager in a multinational company. This Ramadan, I participated in an Azan reciting program in a Facebook group. I saw Jannatul Apu first. Her Azan reciting amazed me and inspired me to participate too. I was excited, enjoyed a lot. Interestingly, when I published my Azan on my Facebook wall, one of my relatives called me to advise that I should not post this. This is not appropriate work, and to remove this post. This is the scenario in our society. Ms. Jannatul, do you want to add anything about that, that our own relatives and peers creates obstacles while practicing own religion or interfaith?
Yeah, I would like to thank Saida Tahira Apu to initiate to join with this movement. Like it's very normal. Like every day, 5 times in Bangladesh, we used to listen Azan. But as we say, women are always other, excluded. So we never thought that reciting Azan, how would it be? How many of us tried ourselves to recite the whole Azan? I don't know. But in last Ramadan, there was an organization of North American Muslim women. They initiated this project and they asked women to participate in Azan. And Saida Tahira Apu also joined this project, and she said that how we can change the mentality of our society. You did it. You participated. You broke the taboo. That's how we can change. Of course, there will be a lot of backlash. Tell me about it. Like, I know how family and society tries to control, and yeah, that's really tough. Sometimes it hurts a lot, and that's the reason nowadays I'm thinking that we like the people who are working in this field, or we all are working. Like Saida Tahira Apu thinks that she is not working in this field, but with her initiative, she is also somehow already joined in this in these works. So I feel like sometimes for this kind of backlash and stereotypes I hear, it is very depressing, and we need a lot of mental support and strength among us also. Like that's the reason I thank GenLab and the organizations who who always try to connect people, and it's like a breathing space. So we will work, we will talk, we will be vocal with the greater society. At the same time, we will try to create network. Building network for peace is very important for this issue, because we need to create network among us so that we can participate. We can transmit our strength, as Neha said. We can transmit our skills too. So we all are not we all are learning. We can share our knowledge too with our network. That's how we can change the mentality, like participate and break the taboo, and be vocal. And when you feel hurt, depressed, connect with your own network, who you feel that can understand your idea and your views. I think I answered Saida's question.
Ms. Shehreen, Ataur Khan wants to speak something on that.
Well, I would just like to add something to what Jannath Apu said. What you did, Sayada Tahira Apu, that's a commendable work. And because you see, you're saying you're seeing yourself outside of this circle, but what you have shared with us, it's very commendable from your position or from any position. And what you have faced, it's a very basic thing that we face every day, as Jannath Apu was also mentioning about this. But sharing all these things and breaking the taboos and going beyond our comfort zone, getting out of our comfort zone is something probably that will be helping each of us in building this conversation. And I think another thing is important for all of us to ensure or to get it, that we already have said, that start small, start local. That when we are saying start small, it can be your parent, it can be your sibling, it can be your friend, your only best friend. And breaking all these things, like these hurdles, and these are treated as stigma, that women cannot do this and that, and you are going beyond your borders, you're crossing limits, and therefore you are the one who is the outcast. And this is stressful. All these experiences are stressful. They can create trauma, and they can leave a huge psychological impact on the people. And that is why I think finding an ally, finding a friend, or finding a platform who are sharing your same ideas, who are there to hold you up if you started to fall, I think it's very important. Because otherwise, sometimes I have seen people who tried to break those boundaries, who tried to go beyond the limitations. They couldn't do it because of the constrictive nature of our society, and they felt depressed, or they felt sad and upset about themselves, and they started to ask questioning their self-worth. So I guess, and that is something that is a very dangerous space that our society is creating for people who wants to go beyond the limitation. So in this case, I think similar mind and people with similar thinking, or some platforms that can be helpful, that will not be judgmental towards your work, and that will uplift your work and not question your self-worth, it would be a great support, and sometimes your strength as well. So yes, that's it. I'm sorry if I take more.
We are gonna end this session in few minutes, and lastly, I would like to hear just one line from our honorable, wonderful panelists. Just one line, the ending. What do you want to say about that, Miss Niloya?
Okay, always me first. Why? I don't know. But okay. So lastly, what I want to say from my big personal experience and being part of GenLab. So we are an action-based organization. We talk less, we do more. So if anyone wants to, anyone feels like us who wants to shatter these glass ceilings of women cannot work in interfaith, or they feel that pluralism and we need this society where we can peacefully coexist, and you see problems, we can work together, we can collaborate, we need different set of skills, like Sneha said. So we are a small community. We do not want to like stay small. We want to be pop culture. We want to be popular, as in that sense that it should not be a problem. Sorry, I should have said in one line. So my one line is, let's work together, and if we have a problem, let's address it and recognize it. So yeah, forgot about that. But
thank you. Sneha?
I think I already posted my one line that, it's high time women should start celebrating resistance. We should not take that as something against us, or that shouldn't be demoralizing us, So my one line would be, just enjoy your resistance. You're doing good when you get resistance.
Right. Shehreen? One line. Muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I realized that. Just find strength in each other and find your ally and go beyond limitation, because that's the only thing that will keep us going and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jannatul?
Just let your voice to be heard. What you want to say, always try to tell it. Be vocal, and don't let others to put to let you give advice that what should you do. Give your voice. don't put others' voice into you.
And lastly, Mr. Rahim, your last
Yeah,
line.
well, I'm just so impressed by all of the female leadership and power on this call. I think everyone's doing amazing work. My one line is keep up the momentum and don't be afraid to ask for help. I've also added my email if you'd like to stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are closing down the session for today, and thanks to US Embassy, GenLab, Josh, Asmapu, Shahinapu, and all our participants, and obviously our 5 speakers for the day. And we have also many sessions upcoming. You have to keep your eyes on the page of GenLab and also US Embassy. We will be having another dialogue very in few weeks, that is on gender sensitization, very much related to this topic. So I would request you to keep your eyes on these pages. And I have asked for the last lines from all of our speakers, and I'm just going to close down with one line from me, that is go women. So I'll be seeing you very soon on the same platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.